I just noticed this before I click live, okay? The article, which I highlighted the other day, The Indians Dividing MAGA, by Shashi Tharoor. So it's not me saying that Indians are dividing MAGA or being told that they're dividing MAGA. It's an Indian man, Shashi Tharoor, who's a regular part of our vocabulary here on Houstonic.live right now, because he is a person who's very visible and of significance. And I just noticed that Shashi Tharoor, it says Project Syndicate exclusive to the Sunday Times in Sri Lanka. I don't know why I didn't pick up on that. I thought that this was an India newspaper, Sunday Times. I didn't realize it was Sri Lanka. Although Shashi is not, or Tharoor is not Sri Lankan, because I don't believe he has anything to do with Sri Lanka other than India relations with Sri Lanka. There is someone who is of significance with respect to COVID who is connected with Sri Lanka. And that is described as the Chinese virologist Li Meng Yan. Although she's obviously, visually you can tell she's not Sri Lankan. She claims to be born in China and escaped the United States from China or Hong Kong early in the pandemic. She's married to a Sri Lankan man into a Sri Lankan family. But her in-laws have been in the United States for a long time. Not just like last 3 years. I mean, her father-in-law has been with the National Cancer Institute in the United States right now for like about 20 years. He's been in Bethesda, Maryland area. And at some point, it's like, okay, so your father-in-law's to the point where he can just about collect a retirement package from the United States government. He's been in the National Cancer Institute for so long. He has multiple published papers. He's one of the most frequent co-authors of among the first people who are credited with discovering and isolating the first SARS virus. You're not just another virologist. So, Shashi Tharoor with Sri Lanka, and I just start to think, I wonder if Shashi Tharoor has complained about or said, hey, this Chinese scientist, Li Meng Yan, we should listen to her because of her whistleblowing. So what we got here, this is the Week magazine. I'm not even familiar with this one here. After she alleged that the novel coronavirus was made in a lab in China, virologist Dr. Li Meng Yan had to flee Hong Kong. Now, why is Shashi Tharoor's name also popping up on this list? Of course, there's the White House shooting the National Guard members. Slain U.S. Guard member Sarah Beckstrom's fate seemed clear after father's somber update. What the heck? Are you kidding me? So the Tucker Carlson, after the death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022, Carlson opined that the British Empire, although not perfect, had brought civilization to regions it occupied with decency unmatched by any empire in human history. He was criticized in India by figures, including the politicians and historian Shashi Tharoor. Wow, that's pretty interesting. As far as I know, I have not heard one other single independent citizen journalist, citizen researcher ever mention his name until I mentioned it. Now, the name is abundantly mentioned in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, etc. In fact, it goes to show that the New York Times and Wall Street Journal and ABC News and CNN and so on do a better job than a lot of independent researchers do. I'm not saying that he's the smartest person in the world, but I mean, look, at some point, he's made himself visible, or he was chosen to be visible, so he has to be part of the conversation one way or another. And no one ever mentions him, almost as if citizen journalists, independent media, whatever you want to call it, is designed in such a way to only get people's eyes on one part. But if you go to the Wikipedia page, and it's funny how so many independents say never look at Wikipedia. Wikipedia says that Tucker Carlson, this is Tucker Carlson's Wikipedia page. He was criticized in India by figures including the politician and historian Shashi Tharoor, who had written a book detailing the atrocities of the British Raj. And it is noteworthy that Shashi Tharoor, he was the right-hand man of United Nations Director, Prime Minister, President, whatever you want to call it, Kofi Annan at the time of September 11th, 2001. Shashi Tharoor was the communications director of the United Nations at that time. And he was in New York City with United Nations Director Kofi Annan and head of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. They were all together. I think they were all getting out of a cab or something together at the time that one of the planes flew into towers. And they looked up and they went, wow, look at that. Now, whether or not that actually happened, I don't know, but it is true that that's a story that they've actually shared. It's a ridiculous story. I'm not saying that they weren't in New York City, but just the whole context of it, okay? Anyways, so Shashi Tharoor is in Tucker Carlson's page. That's funny because Tucker Carlson also celebrated Lee Meng-yen. It's just totally bananas, everyone. So the video that I wanted to highlight, Candace Owens had a 1-hour show with Steve Bannon, and it's on PragerU. It was posted anyways. Whether or not it was a recording date, we don't know. But it was posted on August 4th, 2019, just before the pandemic. The first part of the video, they talk a lot about Steve Bannon's fundraiser for raising money on the border wall and how citizens can do this. Note, Steve Bannon got into some legal trouble because they didn't know what happened with all the money in 2020. Steve Bannon got into trouble. Miles Guacamole got into trouble. And Candace Owens eagerly says, I heard about the border wall and I gave my $200. I think a lot of Americans committed money or gave money towards it. And God bless them. I understand why someone would feel compelled. And I understand how a friend, someone who comes to you through the screen here, you hear them, you see them over the internet through a podcast, and you go, wow, this person must be fighting for me. This person who has enough time to get all glammed up and hire a whole staff and make a whole video and everything else, this person must be fighting for me. What a ridiculous thing for them to say and think. But sure enough, that's what we all felt. I felt that way too at one point when I would watch a podcast like this. They must be fighting for me. What a ridiculous thing. Eventually that collapsed. People got scammed out of money. People probably got put onto lists. And Candace Owens is helping Steve Bannon make that possible here on August 4th, 2019. It's possible the video was made a few days before then. I don't really know when it was made. It's unlikely the video was made much earlier before August 4th, 2019. Look, he's drinking from the Candace Owens now. That might actually just be a screen, too. They may not actually be there at the border. We have no idea. That could just be a studio. What I wanted to highlight, though, is that August 4th, 2019. Let's look at a few dates. Let's consider a few dates because we know that Candace Owens right now believes that the Israelis and the Jews and something to do with Epstein killed her partner, Charlie Kirk, not her marital and romantic partner, but someone that she did a lot of work with and toured a lot with, Charlie Kirk. And on August 10th, 2019, that Jeffrey Epstein died. So Jeffrey Epstein dies only 6 days after this interview. That's remarkable because Candace Owens, who claims that her business partner was assassinated by Jews and Israelis and people who know Epstein, okay, she's talking to the last person that interviewed Jeffrey Epstein. So this man here, Steve Bannon, interviewed Jeffrey Epstein sometime in July 2019 and has 20 or 30 unreleased hours of recording of Jeffrey Epstein before Jeffrey Epstein died. So she is like only hours away. You know, Epstein, the guy who several years from now is going to be involved with Israelis and Jews and kill her partner, she's talking to the last guy who interviews him just days, hours before Epstein definitely doesn't kill himself or whatever the joke is. That's kind of odd that people are so horrified about all of the atrocities that Jeffrey Epstein did. The best they can do regarding an investigation into how Jeffrey Epstein died is to come up with a funny meme that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Ha, ha, ha. And then they even apply the same funny meme to 9/11. Building 7 didn't blow itself up. Ha, ha, ha. So serious. Now, in this interview, they both do something that they don't do anymore. You know what that is? They talk about the opioid epidemic. In fact, Candace Owens uses the phrase, the opioid crisis. So in 2019, when there were 68,000 fatal drug overdose deaths in the United States of America, a number which became 120,000 by the year 2021, she used the word opioid crisis to suggest that we need more border control, more border security, and we need to cut down on drug trafficking. And nowadays, now that we have 100,000 plus, we've had, a million drug overdose deaths just of opioids in the last 12, 14 years or so, and we're having 100,000 deaths a year. Remember, our baseline fatal drug overdose number of deaths was 19,000 back in year 1999. She won't mention it anymore. It's amazing. I thought she cared about life. I thought she cared about kids. I guess she doesn't care about kids when they die about drugs after this point in time. And then Steve Bannon then goes on to say, well, we do have a lot of opioid trafficking, but we have a bigger problem with human trafficking. Where are they? Where are they? It's a legitimate question because given how many deaths we've had of actual Americans, where are the millions and millions and millions and millions of people that have been trafficked in? Where are they? Are there just caves full of kids that are now in their 20s and 30s? Where are they? What is this vague human trafficking problem that we keep hearing about? Where are the tens of millions of parents worldwide that had a child kidnapped from them and trafficked into the United States in some vague, unspecific way to do some vague, unspecific, untrackable thing? All we know is that the human trafficking is so bad that we can't talk about anything else. They are definitely both complicit in the opioid epidemic, and right now, hell hath no fury but for Candace Owens and the deaths that will occur from her continuing to say that she's the damsel in distress. And my prayers to the people who still say that we need to be concerned about her latest fear for her life. I'm sorry, the biggest threat to the United States of America right now is not foreign nations. It's not foreign religions. And it isn't even a political ideology. The biggest threat to the United States right now is podcasters who lie. If there was one group of people who right now are the biggest threat to the United States of America, it's podcasters who lie, because they are the most immediate threat to millions of Americans having far more rapid access to individuals who have put everything on the line for real and have lost for real. Podcasters who lie, who make garbage like this, who deceive people, and other people who say, watch this, these are the heroes, are the biggest enemy of the United States of America right now. They are the most immediate thing in the way of us getting to whatever that next step is. They made the opioid epidemic possible by continuing to find ways to get people to worry about other vague, unspecific things. We need to be worried about human trafficking. You got to be specific, and you can't just keep showing one photo of one person that was at a party back in the 1990s and saying that this is the evidence for everything. I can go to memorial services and see tens of thousands of photos for real of real people, and I even know many of their parents. When it comes to the drug crisis, it's not just some vague trafficking claim with numbers and stats represented anonymously by some three-letter agency within the United States government. And this is where we're at. And Candace Owens is part of this machine. And Candace Owens wants everything about Epstein. And as I've joked before, what will she not say anymore? She definitely won't say opioids anymore. But she I don't know if she ever did, but right now she also won't say India. Now, I'm not saying that India is behind everything bad. I don't know. But I will say that when you have an Indian national running the National Institutes of Health right now, Jayanta Bhattacharya, who's unwilling to even admit that the opioid epidemic is happening, and with many fentanyl components that cause fatal overdoses come out of India, we have a problem. And I know that one of the biggest supporters of India and one of the biggest supporters of Modi is this man here, Steve Bannon. So Mr. Pro-India Steve Bannon and Miss Never Even Acknowledge That They Exist India Candace Owens right here are both having this conversation basically within days of a major Epstein event, an Epstein event which involves Steve Bannon, who is the last person to interview Jeffrey Epstein, and Candace Owens, who's making her whole living right now about Israel and Jews and Epstein somehow being wrapped up in the death of her partner. Maybe on that note, instead of allowing people to see the real tragedies and understand the real tragedies that have happened for what they are, what we see is a hijacking of them and a manipulation to disallow people to see the truth. So, for example, instead of open conversation about how there's so much prostitution and child prostitution because of addiction, which is real, we are talking about vague, unspecific, unmeasurable human trafficking. They just throw out numbers. They just say millions without any substance behind it. And they use that to hijack the conversation. So instead of a very clear conversation about the opioid epidemic, addiction, about lethally laced street drugs, about the nature of family breakup and child prostitution, everything else, all we can hear about is border issues and trafficking. And they hijack the discussion. So a real tragedy is hijacked and the political capital is used for something else. And the real tragedy goes unaddressed. So when I say that's people such as Steve Bannon and Candace Owens and other podcasters who say that these are good people and are part of this charade of worrying about who's being targeted right now, that podcasters are the biggest enemy of the United States of America, I mean it. I actually mean it. Okay, I'm not saying that they are, everything's fine. It's just podcasters behind all the conspiracies. What I'm saying is that podcasters is the level right now. It's the next level that is taking the money that's preventing people from learning a whole lot more. Podcasters are the enemy right now. They are traitors for what they're doing to the United States of America. They are making mass levels of death possible. There are other situations where real tragedies have been hijacked for political purposes. This is where it gets really uncomfortable. Genocides. Mass quantities of death have happened from one nation attacking another, from one nation having concerns about a cultural or a religious group being in certain parts of their territory. But the nature of genocide, of there just being some endless, and I mean endless, irrational passion for one group of people to want to eliminate another group of people from a planet, is arguably not real. So, for example, suppose there's the Group A people and the Group B people, and there's a region in a country which is mostly Group B, a small region where Group A people live. And maybe the Group B people, they just don't trust these Group A people, okay, for whatever reason, all right? Things aren't going great, unfortunately, and a bunch of exercises are tried, and eventually, instead of just redistricting or instead of just some political persuasion, some Group B people within this country of Group B starts to kill the Group A people that are also in this country. Is that a genocide? It is a mass killing of a certain type of people in a particular context. Now, does that mean that the Group B people wake up every morning, no matter where they are on the planet, and are going to seek Group A people, no matter where they are on the planet, and try to kill them? I don't know of any case of that ever happening. But the concept of genocide comes up. So mass killing is terrible. Mass killing, it just shouldn't happen. Well, killing at all is a sin. But mass killing, obviously, it shouldn't happen. But instead of, and the same with the drug epidemic, an accurate description, and we're not talking just a few hundred people died of drug overdoses. We're talking a million. We're talking in the million level right now in the United States, okay? Instead of having an accurate conversation about that, it gets overridden by vague, unspecific, unmeasurable things which don't really accurately describe anything actionable, just like genocide. The word gets thrown out there. So while in reality, people have been chased out of countries, people have been killed in the hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions at certain points. But this vague talk of genocide is inaccurate. And instead of real conversations about, well, where was Armenia? Where were the borders? What were the trade routes? What were the differences between the Armenian population and their religion and the Turkish government? We just have Armenia genocide. And there's this argument right now of, was the Armenia genocide real or not? It is fair to say that it's not known exactly how many people, but Turkey's stance that there was no genocide is not the same as Turkey saying nobody died. Is Turkey showing evidence that they're sending people around the world to kill everyone who's Armenia right now? I don't think so. So while it was a crime, while it was an attack against a specific people, is it global genocide? Now, why do I bring this up? I'm not bringing this up to say that we should ignore these atrocities. What I'm bringing this up is to highlight that just like Candace Owens and Steve Bannon and the other monsters out there, the traitorous people who say that we should support and be concerned about Candace Owens, okay, who are taking conversations, accurate conversations about child prostitution and drug addiction and fatal drug overdoses and turning into vague casts and concerns about trafficking. We have people who take real atrocities related to war and turn it into vague, overarching words of genocide. And how do you even act on that? As far as I know, there is no evidence of any one group right now that has a worldwide pursuit to eliminate another group of people on a worldwide basis. I'm not excusing what has happened. Of course I'm not. But I am saying that this term genocide and how it's being used, it's just not an accurate word. Just like these vague things of human trafficking. What, who, where, what? Where are the millions of people? Where are the tens of millions of parents who are upset that they had a child kidnapped and trafficked somewhere? Where? What are they mad about? Because instead of someone like myself, who represents an actual death from the drug epidemic, getting any visibility, they have hijacked that political capital. They have taken it. Now, let's go to this genocide thing here. Because with respect to that, there is a movie that does need to be viewed. Preventing Genocide. This was a movie made in 2009, Preventing Genocide. Why should we be so concerned about preventing genocide? Shouldn't we just want to prevent people from hurting people? People shouldn't kill other people. And you know what? One of the first steps that makes it possible for people to kill other people is to lie. Hence, you know why so many people died in the drug epidemic? Because of Candace Owens and Steve Bannon. So they have kids who haven't died of drug overdoses, and they have lied about the nature of the drug epidemic. Their willingness to lie have killed people. That's just the truth. I know Candace Owens may not think that. She may not have even put that together in her head. But there's money in her pocket, and there's clothes on her children's shoulders right now because she was willing to take a job to lie about the drug epidemic in the United States. And now probably even to work for a foreign government. Going back to here, shouldn't we just not want mass killing or just killing in general? Shouldn't we aspire to be kind? Why such a specific thing about genocide? Let's say the 75% of one nation, okay, one day just, for whatever reason, is motivated and then carries out their desire and kills the other 25% of a nation. That's terrible. Is it okay if it's not technically, genocide? Why genocide? It's almost as if they are taking real tragedies, which are horrible, and then slightly misinterpreting them, and then hijacking the philanthropic contributions, the political capital. They are misconstruing real events. They are getting in the way of people having an accurate understanding of what's going on. People could understand the nature of what's going on with respect to vaccine injuries, but we have a group of people that have gotten in the way. People could understand what's going on right now with respect to all of these amazing, fascinating developments of trade and politics within Central Asia. But no, we have podcasters getting in the way. People could understand the nature of risks of drugs and drug overdoses and child prostitution and so on in the United States. But no, we have podcasters getting in the way. We are prevented from having accurate understandings because of other people who are paid to get in the way. And one of the ways that people get in the way of understanding some of the worst things that have ever happened is this evangelism of concern of genocide. And who's in the video? Jeffrey Sachs, Kofi Annan, the UN director. You know, the guy who Shashi Tharoor was the spokesman for. And this man here, David Hamburg. Now, David Hamburg was the head of the Carnegie Institute, and his daughter, Peggy Hamburg, went on to become the FDA director of Obama for 7 out of his 8 years and spearhead the demand for personalized medicine. I'm not saying that it's impossible that the person who is spearheading the world's awareness and fight against genocide, and David Hamburg also led nuclear disarmament discussions between the United States and Russia. I'm not saying that it's impossible that his daughter also plays such a big role with respect to 9/11 and germs, you know, the book written by Judith Miller,
September 9th, 2001.
And then even goes on to spearhead the push for personalized medicine 7 out of the 8 years in the Obama administration. I'm not saying that that's impossible, but what I am saying, though, is that it's at the very least odd. It's one of those weird things that you go, you know, I wonder if those are connected. Oh, Jeffrey Sachs is in this video also. Big proponent of we need to be worried about genocide. Jeffrey Sachs, the hero, a longtime supporter of India, and for whatever reason, he just has a bee in his bonnet all the time about China and definitely can't stand the United States. And I question his judgment. I question his intellect and his sanity. Why would you live in a nation that you hate? Now, maybe some people stay in nations. They're born there. They have their family there, whatever. Yeah, things aren't perfect. He hates the USA. Why not just leave? Just go. So many other wonderful places to live. The film also credits special thanks to Joshua Lederberg. And remember, David Hamburg, because of his nuclear disarmament discussions with Yeltsin and Russia, is considered to be the founding father of the United States Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the DTRA. The DTRA, who was behind funding so much of EcoHealth Alliance and all of these other vaccine initiatives. The DTRA, they got 2 whole chapters in the germs book. I wonder if David Hamburg, I don't think Hamburg was actually mentioned here by name. I know Margaret Hamburg is in here, of course, multiple times. But no, her father, David Hamburg, is not mentioned in here. David Hamburg is a very dear friend of Joshua Lederberg, by the way. And as much as I hate to say it, Joshua Lederberg was very, very good friends with the Sackler family. It's a disgusting thing. It's a horrible realization, but it is what it is. It must be accepted. So that leads us to this video. And I think it's this video and some of those connections that I'm going to be talking about here. It is Saturday, November 29th, 2025. Mark Kulak, Houstonic Live. This is for you, Peggy.
I seen your picture. Your name in lights above it. This is your big debut. It's like a dream come true. So won't you smile for the camera? I know they're gonna love it. Big. I like your picture. I keep it with your letter.
In this photo here, that of course is Elvis Presley. And Elvis Presley is at a contract signing here. This is, I think, 1969 this photo was taken. I believe, I could be mistaken. And he's signing a contract as part of his one of his first big comebacks. He's still, of course, quite young. And he's signing a contract at a major hotel in the Las Vegas area. The hotel, I think, is the Tropicana, I think, might be the hotel that it was for. The hotel is owned by, or partially owned by, a major investor in the entertainment industry in the Las Vegas area named Kirk Kerkorian. Now, the guy on the right, the guy who's wearing the white helmet that says International, his name is Bill Miller, Miller. He's also known as Mr. Entertainment. I just made a page for him. Or Bill Miller, Mr. Entertainment, or Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller. Now, Bill Miller is an American. His parents migrated to the United States from Ukraine. And no one knows exactly what their real name was. So when he migrated to the United States and he was like age 1, they just wrote Miller on the paperwork. So it is what it is, okay? That happened a lot. And anyway, so Bill Miller was the entertainment director of the Tropicana and worked pretty extensively with Kirk Kerkorian. And Kirk Kerkorian went on to become a billionaire many, many, many times over. And Kirk Kerkorian was Armenian. And I think if you read Wikipedia page for Kirk Kerkorian, that's Kerkorian, you'll be fascinated. Kirk Kerkorian's parents escaped Armenia in time to survive, or maybe it was the area of Turkey where Armenians were living, the mass killings which were happening, because many Armenians were killed. And Kirk Kerkorian himself, if you read his bio, it's very impressive, okay? And he represents the category of badass immigrants to America that I think we need more of. If you look at his early years as a pilot, I mean, this is a guy who took real risks, and I find to be very impressive and very admirable. And he was also a very confident and pioneering investor who eventually moved to Las Vegas, or Nevada anyways, and got very much involved with the entertainment industry. Now, I'm sure that Kerkorian saw that there were opportunities in Nevada because you can make a little bit extra if you start to mention the skim. We know how that is. The movie Casino by Martin Scorsese references
Before I ever
the
ran
skim.
a casino or got myself blown up, Ace Rothstein was a hell of a handicapper. I can tell you that. I was so good that whenever I bet, I could change the odds for every bookmaker in the country. I'm serious. I had it down so cold that I was given paradise on earth. I was given one of the biggest casinos in Las Vegas to run, the Tangiers, by the only kind of guys that can actually get you that kind of money, $62,700,000. I don't know all the details.
Matter of fact, nobody knew all the details. But it should have been perfect. I mean, he had me, Nicky Santoro, his best friend, watching his... But it turned out to be the last time that street guys like us were ever given anything that f***ing valuable again.
At that time, Vegas was a place where millions of suckers flew in every year on their own nickel and left behind about $1 billion. But at night, you couldn't see the desert that surrounds Las Vegas. Who could resist? Anywhere else in the country, I was a bookie, a gambler, always looking over my shoulder, hassled by cops day and night. But here, I'm Mr. Rothstein. I'm not only legitimate, but running a casino. And that's like selling people dreams for cash. I hired an old casino pal, Billy Sherbert, as my manager, and I went to work. And along with making us legit comes cash. Tons of it. I mean, what do you think we're doing out here in the middle of the desert? It's all this money. This is the end result of all the bright lights and the comp trips, of all the champagne and free hotel suites, and all the broads and all the booze. It's all been arranged just for us to get your money. That's the truth about Las Vegas. We're the only winners. The players don't stand a chance. And their cash flows from the tables to our boxes, through the cage, and into the most sacred room in the casino. The place where they add up all the money, the holy of holies, the count room. Now, this place was off limits. Even I couldn't get inside, but it was my job to keep it filled with cash, that's for sure.
They had so much money in there, you could build a house out of stacks of $100 bills. And the best part was that upstairs, the board of directors didn't know what the was going on. I mean, to them, everything looked on the up and up, right? Wrong. The guys inside the counting room were all slipped in there to skim the joint dry. They'd do short counts, they'd lose fill slips, they'd even take cash right out of the drop boxes. And it was up to this guy right here, standing in front of about $2 million, to skim the cash off the top without anybody getting wise, the IRS or anybody. Now notice how in the count room nobody ever seems to see anything. Somehow somebody's always looking the other way. Now look at these guys, they look busy, right? They're counting money. Who wants to bother them? I mean, God forbid they should make a mistake and forget to steal. Meanwhile, you're in and you're out. Past the Jagoff guard who gets an extra C note a week just to watch the door. I mean, it's routine. Business as usual. In, out, hello, goodbye, and that's all there is to it. Just another fat walking out of the casino with a suitcase. Now that suitcase was going straight to one place, right to Kansas City, which was as close to Las Vegas as the Midwest bosses could go without getting themselves arrested. That suitcase was all the bosses ever wanted, and they wanted it every month. Now this old Mormon here, he had to fly in with suitcases once a month, nice and easy.
Something smells good.
The bosses would come from all over the place, Detroit, Cleveland, Milwaukee, all over the Midwest. And they would meet in the back of this produce market in Kansas City. I mean, nobody even knew. One of the guys made his mother do all the cooking.
Take a little bit money off the top, and that's how all of this stuff works. And then that goes to the mafia. Mafia uses that money for unions and kickbacks to presidents, and it's very complicated. But basically, it's one of those things. Everybody wins, okay? But Krikorian, he saw taking Las Vegas in a more and more corporate direction, basically bigger hotels, bigger casinos. And towards the end of the movie Casino, the Scorsese movie that was filmed in 94, they actually showed the demolishing of a lot of the older hotels in Las Vegas and the newer ones being built. In the MGM Grand that was built in Nevada, that massive monstrosity, which was like the biggest building like ever for a while, like 10,000 rooms, I don't even know, whatever the metric is, okay? That was Kirk Kerkorian's vision. Now, that wasn't made until the 80s, and then 90s they made bigger and bigger ones. But anyways, Kirk Kerkorian is seen as the person who really started that whole movement of the mega Las Vegas hotel. And that was after this era of the Tropicana. Now, Bill Miller, Mr. Entertainment, he didn't just work with Elvis. Bill Miller also played a role with Sonny and Cher. In fact, I think Sonny and Cher credit a lot of their success to the involvement of Bill Miller. And I think Barbra Streisand was also brought to Las Vegas by Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller. And I'm sure that there's many others. I don't have the exhaustive list. In other words, Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller is a big deal, and Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller worked a lot with Kerkorian, Armenian immigrant. Why do we go here? Well, there's so many directions to take this. So Kirk Kerkorian worked a lot with Bill Miller, and Kirk Kerkorian becomes one of the wealthiest people in Nevada, billionaire many, many times over. And Kirk Kerkorian is also one of the largest, if not the single largest donor to causes related to the recognition of the Armenian genocide ever. Now, Krikorian, even though that he knew, Tyson and all these fighters and all of these entertainments, etc., is also known for keeping a lower profile in many ways and sort of living kind of a private life. And I respect that Krikorian, I think, was closer to the real deal and actually wanting money to go towards helping other people who are Armenian and helping the reestablishment of and the future success of Armenia, and of providing money to Armenian groups worldwide. I think Krikorian was the real deal there. And I suspect it really wasn't from a bad place. Okay, it would be from a good place. Of course, he would have wanted some recognition of genocide, but I think that even he himself, you tend to get misled a little bit at some point. It just winds up becoming this technical nuance. But it's an important nuance because there's all these other United Nations rules that then apply once it becomes a genocide. Like, you can go and you can kill 20 million people, I guess. But as long as it's technically not a genocide, there's a lot of punishments that don't come with it if you're in the United Nations. But if it's a genocide, now all of a sudden we have territorial disputes and all of these other things that go along with it. So that's what I mean. It's like it becomes this weird technicality, and it also becomes something that overwhelms. Now, I bring this up for so many reasons. I think that money being used, and there are probably other people that fall in that category, it winds up going towards funding recognition of these genocides. And if we go back to the video, if you watch the movie, the 2009 film Preventing Genocide, which, by the way, was directed by the son of David Hamburg, the sister of Margaret Hamburg, the very first thing they talk about is the Armenian genocide. So a lot of money to support this comes in through the Armenian genocide. And they start to hijack that capital. So it may sound fine at first, like, okay, well, genocides are bad. Mass killings are awful. They're raising awareness. They're doing a movie about these mass killings. What's the problem? The problem is you become the vehicle that collects the money, and then you insert yourself in there. So instead of a more nuanced conversation about why were Armenians targeted by the Turkish people, why did that dispute happen? What were the frictions between those religions? Why did that happen? Turkish people died too in the process of committing that genocide. It wasn't just done willy-nilly without consequence. So there must have been something more to it than that. But it starts off talking about the genocide, and then it ends with it all the time. It ends with white supremacy. It ends with a concern about guns, nuclear weapons, and then maybe even racially targeted biological weapons. So, once again, sort of like Candace Owens and Steve Bannon, and it's so beautiful, by the way, that we have Steve Bannon and Candace Owens as part of this conversation here. The political capital gets hijacked, but even worse, there was money there which could have been used to educate thousands or millions of people through awareness, and it gets hijacked and it gets turned into something else. Just like when it comes to child prostitution and drug overdose awareness, it gets hijacked and it turns into vague human trafficking. Who, what, where, when, how? I've shown real videos of real faces, of real names and real ages and real addresses, real Americans who were killed, and people are like, they're yawning. But then you just say 1 million people were babies were kidnapped and trafficked. People suddenly get all upset. Like, who? Who were these people? The political capital gets used, but the money which was put up for recognition of these tragedies, okay, and for education also doesn't actually get used to educate people properly, because it's getting burned by this asshole who is considered to be the founding father of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which wound up giving tons of its money to support projects from people such as Robert Malone and Sina Bavari. That's why. And Jeffrey Sachs, etc., etc. Go back to that video with Candace Owens, Steve Bannon. Let's go to Steve Bannon's page here. Let's go to the Houstonic Archive here. Let's go to Steve Bannon. Let's go to the Steve Bannon page, Bannon. Hopefully everything is sorted appropriately here. Bannon, Bannon. Excelente. And let's go down to 2000 and I think it's 2006. 2006. Time Magazine ran an article in 2006 called Play It Again, Boys. And I'm just going to read it quickly here. Play It Again, Boys. December, Time Magazine. Harvey Weinstein has a perfect ending in mind for Miramax Films. The company he and his brother Bob were forced to leave behind in 2005 when they departed the Walt Disney Company after 12 colorful years. In Harvey's final scene, the two and it talks about the end of this idea that they have for their film company here. Blah 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 blah. Investors thrown money at them, meaning Miramax, Bob and Harvey Weinstein, these filmmakers. They amassed, I'm skipping a few paragraphs, they amassed a $1.2 billion bankroll, including $500 million through a debt sale and a remainder via 32 investors ranging from fellow entrepreneurs like internet billionaire Mark Cuban and carpet kingpin Julian Saul to hedge fund and financial firms, including Wellington Management and Fidelity Investments. Noteworthy that here we are in 2005, and one of the main investors in Miramax and Harvey Weinstein is Steve Bannon. So Steve Bannon and Harvey Weinstein, the film director, are definitely connected here in 2005, okay? Definitely. Going back to the Time Magazine article here, yet their indie upbringing, the upbringing of Bob and Harvey Weinstein, and they mean independent films, taught them to be tight with a dollar and careful about cash flow. A key strategy calls for building a formidable library, and they're talking about a movie library in this 2006 Time Magazine article, that can spin off immediate revenues while providing fodder for various platforms. Former MGM owner, this MGM movie, okay? Remember, MGM Hotel is owned by Kirk Kerkorian, so that it makes sense that MGM owner movies would also be Kirk Kerkorian. And that's true. Former MGM owner Kirk Kerkorian, the person who raises all this money for Armenian genocide awareness, he gave $1 billion towards it, who flipped his studio 3 times, advised the Weinsteins, meaning Bob and Harvey Weinstein, to scoop up all their solid content they could get their hands on. Their fickle nature of the movie business made each film a gamble, hence a large library would reduce overall risk. Point here is that Kirk Kerkorian, who owns MGM, was making advisements to Harvey Weinstein and his brother Bob Weinstein throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s. The same Kirk Kerkorian, an owner of MGM and other hotels prior to that in Las Vegas, who was working with Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller, who was working with Barbra Streisand and Elvis Presley and so on and so forth. Okay, you follow me? I'm showing the photos here. And this article, this 2006 Time Magazine article, also, if you scroll down a little bit, quotes Genius product chairman Steve Bannon. So this one article references Kirk Kerkorian, Harvey Weinstein, Steve Bannon in Time Magazine. I note that it's really important to use mainstream sources. Anyone that says, I have an anonymous source, I know whistleblowers, bullshit. Turn it off. You either have a source that you can document or you don't. That's the end. That's the whole story. Any anonymous source. How many times have people made up mythology of anonymous sources about this, that, or the other thing? Whatever. Okay. So I use real sources. I use actually mainstream sources. And then you look for the anomalies, and that is, or I should say, incongruencies. So Steve Bannon definitely is already investing with Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein has a professional relationship, at the very least, of consultation with Kirk Kerkorian going back to the 1990s. why does this matter? Let's look at the Harvey Weinstein page I have, which is not that long, but this is a July 7th, 1999 article from the New York Times talking about how Miramax and MGM owned by Kirk Kerkorian, are looking to make movie deals all the way back in 1999. Now, I don't think they ever closed these deals, but the point is that Harvey Weinstein and Kerkorian were working together in the 1990s. It is what it is, guys. It is what it is. It matters because it means that the professional relationships are already established. Harvey Weinstein, by the way, then goes on to create at the same time, basically the same time, Talk Magazine. Talk Magazine is coming out at the same time that Kirk Kerkorian is looking at investing in, MGM is looking at investing in Miramax. You know, Talk Magazine that promotes Gwyneth Paltrow and Hillary Clinton and even Scott Ritter, the same guy that was part of the United Nations weapons of mass destruction. I should say biological weapons research. Scott Ritter wound up in the first article. The first episode, the first issue of Talk Magazine includes Scott Ritter. Incredible coincidence. Let's go back to this photo here of Elvis Presley and Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller. Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller is not really a new person to our research. Because Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller is the dad of Judith Miller. That's right. The most important book in the world that nobody will mention, because it's true, by the way, that nobody will mention to help you understand 9/11. This book here that came out on September 9th, 2001. This book here, Judith Miller, her dad was working with Kirk Kerkorian all the way back in the 1960s, bringing Elvis Presley, Sonny and Cher, Barbara Streisand, and who knows who else out to Nevada. Now, as the movie Casino shows, and it's funny how some people kind of poo-pooed using the movie Casino as any type of evidence of anything, okay? Let's go here. As the movie Casino has told us, there were problems with getting all of the licenses approved for these massive hotels in the Las Vegas area. But Kirk Kerkorian, who was definitely who was 100% in the Democrat Party, Kirk Kerkorian is the person who's primarily responsible for the success of Harry Reid. First at the state senator level, then I think almost governor, but then the longtime senator from the state of Nevada. Harry Reid was primarily supported by Kirk Kerkorian. Now, I should have a picture of Kerkorian up here. Instead, I have the people who worked with Kerkorian, including Bill Miller, but I don't. The movie Casino actually shows, I think it was Bobby Rosenthal, this smaller time hotel manager having some outrage at a court hearing regarding his gambling license, his casino license. And the state senator that is portrayed in the movie Casino, okay, is meant to be in real life Harry Reid, because that actually did happen. And that is the movie Casino gives these hints about this stuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't get fully represented, but it did happen. Now, as the book Germs tells us, because Nevada has a lot to do with a lot of things that happen here. As the book Germs tells us, there was real evidence that biological weapons could be made from products that were available at Lowe's hardware stores. Just before 9/11, a book that was published on September 9th, 2001. And the place that these weapons were demonstrated were in the Nevada Proving Grounds, not too far actually from Las Vegas. In fact, if you go on to nuclear testing, you can see that there was a time when you could actually stand in Las Vegas. This was like in the early 1960s or late 50s, and you could actually watch a nuke go off in the desert. Now, I don't believe in nukes. I just think it was something else happening. But the point is that talk about entertainment. You could enjoy prostitution. You could enjoy a good meal. You could go gambling, and you could watch a nuke go off. There was no city ever, and I think even to this day, where you could have all four things in one day. You could have a 5-star meal, a hooker, you could gamble, and you could watch a nuke go off. Oh, you could even watch Barbra Streisand. All 5 things in one day. It's no question why Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world. There's no other place ever. There probably never will be another place where you could experience so many fantastic things. Now, Kirk Kerkorian, unfortunately, he passed in 2016, or was it 2015? And now his money is being used to make things such as that terrible movie called The Promise with Christian Bale. By the way, I heard that Christian Bale's makeup artist is married to Rodney Mullen, the famous skateboarder that was giving money to Jonathan Cooey, PhD. Now, that's odd, but that's what I've heard. Anyways, so Christian Bale was in this movie, which was funded because Kirk Kerkorian, although he had just died, the movie was released in 2016, The Promise. It bombed. It's a terrible movie. It's not really about the Armenian genocide. It turns it into this love triangle crap. And it doesn't really get into the specifics. It's just, white people bad, genocide, wah, wah, wah. And I say it that way because, again, just like how you could really understand the drug epidemic by understanding the nature of addiction, instead of me being able to tell you about it, you have to listen to Candace Owens and people are trying to hurt me, and it's Epstein and the Jews, and Trump is bad, and Steve Bannon. Instead of a real, useful conversation about the nature of the drug epidemic in the United States and how dropping life expectancy was used to say we have a deadly novel virus coming out of China. Of course, a lot of the evidence of the novel virus coming out of China actually came from India. India, who is never said by Candace Owens, and India, who is absolutely beloved by Steve Bannon. Instead, they dominate the conversation. And again, just like having an accurate conversation about the Armenian genocide, you have to listen to the rest of these assholes right now who have hijacked the word and won't allow any accurate understanding, any useful understanding of the historical events or how to stop them again. Instead, we have to be bedazzled with these stupid movies like Preventing Genocide with Jeffrey Sachs and Kofi Annan and David Hamburg. Special thanks to Joshua Lederberg. And, of course, Sam Nunn is also in there. The same Sam Nunn of the Nunn-Lugar program. The same Sam Nunn and Richard Lugar, who are the primary supporters of President Obama, who, of course, prioritized above everything else United States relationships with India. A time when India was, let's see here, what else happened under India? We had the Iran nuclear deal, we had the Indian nuclear deal, and then the ambassador to India was a man named Richard Verma. Oh, that's right. Richard Verma was the chief strategist to Harry Reid out in Nevada. Harry Reid, whose success was made possible by Kirk Kerkorian, who worked with Bill Miller, Mr. Entertainment Bill Miller, whose daughter Judith Miller wrote the book Germs. Of course, you won't learn any of this because the enemy of the United States of America are podcasters who take money to lie about why people die. And I mean this right now. There is no nation, there is no religion, there is no political ideology right now that is a bigger threat to the United States of America than podcasters. Podcasters who pretend that they're your friend, podcasters who have staffs that they never show, podcasters who take money to lie about why people die and hijack the philanthropy and the political capital of the atrocities of things ranging from genocides to opioid epidemics, and are willing to misrepresent them as human trafficking or racism or guns or biological weapons of mass destruction that can be targeted by genetics. Instead of real understanding, podcasters who take money to lie about why people die. Now, I'm not saying that they're the only enemy, but I don't know how to get to that next level without helping more people see this. And unfortunately, as long as people expect to turn on social media and have a friendly, smiling face with whitened teeth, looking at the camera, telling them that they are here, they just happen to show up today to help them figure out the truth, there is no escape. There is no escape without some serious skill and chops and criticism about social media. There's no way out of it. It is the trap. It is the prison. It is the fence. And this is where we are at. So, I should have a picture of Krikorian next to Elvis. There is an article out there that I found that has, and I'm gonna do chat in just one more minute, and I think maybe for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna sign off. That has Kirk Kerkorian and Naubar Afeyan. Afeyan, who is the founder of Moderna, was the largest shareholder of Moderna. Afeyan, by the way, was also involved in the Human Genome Project and was set up to make a lot of money on 9/11 should the anthrax vaccine and DNA microarrays have been rolled out. Afeyan is also Armenian and thus descends from the diaspora, is that what it's called? The migration of people out of Armenia because it just really wasn't a great place. It wasn't very hospitable anymore for Armenians. Understandably so. But there's an article that highlights the most successful Armenian immigrants or Armenian business people in the United States of America. And it lists the top two is Kerkorian and Naubar Afeyan. Now, it's unfortunate that other channels don't mention these two names regularly. If they did, you would understand what's going on a lot better than you do. I'm not talking to my daily audience. I'm talking about people who maybe haven't seen me before. But they don't, because most podcasters are the enemy of the United States of America and take money to lie about why people die. But anyways, they list these two Armenian immigrants. And when you read their profiles, okay, you could not possibly find two more different people. Kirk Kerkorian lived to age 96. He was a war hero. I'm not saying that he was the greatest, most kindest person. He was rabidly against unions, but everyone that worked for him loved him. He was very generous in pay, but he was also a real hard ass to work for. But if you worked well with him, he paid people generously, and he was beloved for this, okay? In some ways, he's a little bit Trumpish like that. And I know people are like, are you a Trump fanboy? I don't know. But I am a fanboy of people who work hard. I am. So Kirk Kerkorian, and if you look at his the things that he valued, it was like self-discipline, independence, individualism, and it's like, boy, you don't really sound like a Democrat, but whatever the case, okay, his values were like that. Now, and he always remained very lean. He was a very rigid jaw, lean guy. Okay, even until his old age. Now, if you look at Afeyan, the guy is 90 pounds overweight. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not in the best shape of my life either, but it is what it is. And Afeyan, he's fat. And his values were kindness and peace and let's all love each other. And it's like, what kind of a fruity person are you, dude? You could not find two people. But when it came to all of these foundations now in Armenia and they have these events, they say, Kirk Kerkorian, it's nice that you gave us all this money for all this stuff. And then along comes Afeyan and the rest of the Preventing Genocide crew, and genocides are terrible. And you can see how the money, the political capital, whatever, was stolen. One thing becomes something else. I don't know exactly why it happens. I suspect that it's because the people who those funds and that resources and that political capital was intended for could have really done something with it. That money was a threat. There are probably thousands of Armenians who were willing to work for very little money, who could have done a far better job at representing what Armenians went through instead of Afayan and Vartan Gregorian and other Armenians. And now you see India come along and trying to woo Armenia with respect to military contracts. So the real atrocities are misrepresented, and the money, the resources, the political capital is hijacked and misused. And then they very specifically use words. Opioid crisis. Wow, that's boring. Human trafficking. Mass killing. Well, that's terrible. Genocide. Oh, genocide's way worse than mass killing. There's really no UN convention against mass killing. But if it's a genocide, oh my goodness, now we've crossed the line. No wonder why all of these UN, DTRA, State Department people get involved in this type of stuff. Really? Wow, Cher is Armenian. Now that, you see, that's an interesting data point there. Cher is Armenian. I like to think of Cher as American because she's mixed. After you throw things in a blender, you get American. Of course, she has a really long Wikipedia page. Cher does. Oh my goodness, you are right. Cheryl Sarkisian. Good one. Cheryl Sarkisian. So, Cher, the famous entertainer, is Armenian. Pretty cool. She was born in El Centro, California in 1946. Her father, John Sarkisian, is Armenian-American truck driver with a drug and gambling problem. Her mother, Georgia Holt, was a model and actress of Irish, English, and German and Cherokee descent. Cher's paternal grandparents were survivors of the Armenian genocide. Her parents divorced when she was 10, so she did not come from money. No, I know that. Oh, I also wanted to make a correction. There are approximately 20 million people around the world of Armenian ancestry. I had no idea. I thought the total global population of Armenian was closer to like 5 million. It's close to 20 million. So the world has approximately the same number of people of Armenian ancestry as it has Jewish ancestry. And I know ancestry, religion, I know it gets complicated there, but there is a greater distribution of Armenians around the world. Many wound up in Russia. There's many who live in Canada. There's a lot, obviously over 1 million that live in the United States. When it comes to the Jewish population, there's some crazy percentage, like 40% of all Jewish people in the world live in the United States. So the U.S. has a very high Jewish population. She also supported the film The Promise, the one with Christian Bale, raising awareness of the Armenian genocide. Cher publicly praised Kirk Kerkorian for financing the film, calling him a great loss. Well, this is the stupid AI. She should be saying that his death was a great loss, and thanks for supporting that movie. Praise for Kerkorian. In her tweets to her followers, Cher welcomed the film and praised Kerkorian for making it possible. Kirk Kerkorian was a prominent Armenian-American businessman and philanthropist who made significant donations to Armenia, shared heritage. Oh, yeah, Andrei Agassi is also Armenian. I mean, there's a lot of Armenians. There's over, 1.8 million Americans are Armenian. That's close to, 1 out of every 150 or 1 out of every 200 Americans is Armenian. That's a pretty sizable percentage of our population. Yeah, Kardashians are Armenians. Very good. Correct. 100% JJ. The Kardashians are also Armenian. There's a lot of successful Armenian businessmen within the United States. My channel is one where I could do some of the most offensive things in the world on the air, and it probably will never be shared because the last thing anyone wants is for me to get visibility. If I did get visibility for doing atrocious things, then you probably would see some pretty nasty clips made. Anyways, I'm still working on the language here. Please, there's no denying here that mass killing of people has happened. That has happened. That's documented. It's true. Of course, I'm trying to raise awareness of the drug epidemic, the fatal drug overdoses in the United States. Of course, that's happened. My point, though, is highlighting how real tragedies have been taken and the philanthropy money and the political capital have been hijacked. I don't know what better word to use. And then they are misrepresented and mislabeled and intentionally misrepresented for reasons which don't benefit at all the people who died from those atrocities. This vague word of genocide, and they keep going back to white people, which isn't even a race. And of course, we need to outlaw guns. I mean, you should watch this preventing genocide video. It's unbelievable that they talk. It starts off with the Armenian genocide, and it winds up being about the Second Amendment, and then nukes and biological weapons. So it starts off with a real event, a real tragedy, and little by little, and like the frog in the boiling water, you don't even realize it's being misrepresented. So a real mass killing, it goes in, and then little by little, what comes out of the black box that you can't see inside, what comes out of it is genocide. What goes in is 1 million drug overdose deaths and dropping life expectancy, and what comes out is human trafficking and life expectancy going down because of a bad virus and chronic diseases. Even the word genocide, if you get on newspapers.com, now many people would agree that the most frequently referred to events of genocide are what happened in World War II, Jews, mass killings in Germany and thereabouts, and before then Armenia, of course. The word genocide, and I know the word genocide has become more popular, but was not used that frequently after World War II. You could see the trends, how often the word was used in U.S. newspapers was not that high throughout the 1940s nor the 1950s. The frequency of the word, and it's not a 300-year-old word, so you could make the point that it is a newer word. It sort of became more of a word over the last 100 years. But the use of the word started to go up around 1970 and mirrored the concern about biological weapons. And then the two most frequent the years where the word genocide was used most abundantly in U.S. newspapers are the mid to late 1990s and then 2002 to 2004. Now, there really weren't any genocides happening those years. So the frequency of that key word in U.S. newspapers by year suggests that the word was being brought up abundantly in certain years, I believe, as part of evangelizing certain causes or certain UN legislation or something like that. It's not really clear, but it's definitely not about helping anyone have an accurate understanding of what happened in World War II, nor what happened in Armenia. Hello, Subi. My family was among the first wave that helped the first wave of Armenians as they came to Los Angeles area, mostly through churches. The next wave of Armenians came in the 70s, into the 80s. Kind of a different group. It's complicated. That's when things seem to really change. Thank you. That's a great post. I'm sure that there were people that left at different times for different reasons. Again, please, I apologize if you misheard me and you think that I'm saying that there weren't deaths. No, that's not the point. The point is, if you throw this word genocide out there very unspecifically, then you become an impediment to understanding what really happened. And when I see the person who ran all of the, the head of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency and all these concerns of bioweapons and everything else, or nuclear disarmament with Russia, is suddenly concerned about genocide. And then his daughter goes on to spearhead personalized medicine, running the FDA under Obama. I'm like, okay, this is impossible. This is just an impossible coincidence. Not to mention all the other angles that we factored into it. Now, the other part, speaking of Armenia again, is, remember, Harry Reid, this longtime senator from Nevada, who's so concerned about nukes and nuclear waste and everything else. Harry Reid, who was helped by the SCIM out in Nevada, Krikorian, etc. Harry Reid, basically on the Senate side, the peer of Pelosi. Pelosi's seat will be replaced by someone from India. Harry Reid, his strategist for several years was the Indian-American Richard Verma, whose show over the last week, Richard Verma became ambassador to India. Richard Verma, who I think was actually even born in India. Richard Verma married a woman whose grandfather was an assassin with respect to revenge killings in Armenia. He married an Armenian woman, which is great. Armenian women can be beautiful. Good for him. But again, it's like, whoa, okay, well, there's a difference between marrying an Armenian woman and marrying the granddaughter of a famous Armenian assassin. That should come up in the conversation. What does it all mean? I think the big story is, right now I'm furious about how the political capital and the money of real tragedies is being hijacked, stolen, misused, and misrepresented, and how this in and of itself has hurt so many people. And it is really started off with the drug epidemic and dropping life expectancy, and then the drug epidemic and this weird, bizarre, unspecific claim of trafficking. And now I've seen this for a while. I posted this video now a year and a half ago, preventing genocide. I'm like, obviously no one's going to say you should kill people. But there was something about this word just keeps popping up all over the place in our research. Why not just say don't hurt people? But once it's genocide, then it's a problem. What the heck is up with that? So that's my show for today. Kind of a quick update on where we're at. Oh, yeah, Judith Miller's brother, who died of a drug overdose. If there's anyone who should be talking, it's her. He was a music producer. I even think he played the drums on You Can't Always Get What You Want. He died in his 40s. Unbelievable. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting HughSatonic.its.com, HughSatonic.live. Housatonic is a river in the state of Connecticut. My name is Mark Kulak, Kulakz, MK Ultra, if you prefer, or the Ultra MK. I have a little research and archival and analysis studio. I do everything independently. I barely ever get to check up with any communications. Thank you for people who send letters. P.O. Box 505, Southborough, Massachusetts. Contributions are welcome. You can go to HughSatonic.live. Most of my shows are available. We have our own PeerTube server right now, stream.HughSatonic.com. You can check it out. And I've been reposting a ton of videos lately from several other channels regarding the very, very interesting geopolitics involved between China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the shooting that had happened recently in the United States, Washington, D.C., involving someone who is said to be from Afghanistan. I don't know exactly what happened, but I'll tell you, it's not as simple as an angry Muslim person decided to kill 2 people from the National Guard. There is a lot more happening. And remember, that Air Force base that the United States so publicly evacuated 4 years ago under the Biden administration, Bagan Air Force Base, right now, traffic is opening up between Afghanistan and India may move its military into there soon. Isn't that amazing how that happened so rapidly? But everyone can only think about Candace Owens, the little damsel in distress. Oh, well. Woman who lies about why people die for money. So I think that's it, everyone. Thank you. Take care. God bless. Happy Thanksgiving. Think positively, as positive as possible. Most people are not your enemy. Most people are just here every day trying to get by. Love your neighbor. Be kind. Be nice. Hold doors open. Use your turn signal when appropriate. And I will see you guys tomorrow.